I might as well just give in and make this video already, right? So, I've been collecting pictures, just, you know, because, for the sake of it. Maybe one day we'll get a proper video where, like, I explain what this phenomena even is in better detail, somewhat more research to know everything. But I just keep pointing out this geological phenomenon constantly, and people have been wondering if I've been collecting them and everything, and yeah, I actually have been collecting these screenshots. So this is my collection so far, I suppose, of columnar jointing / basalt column screenshots. The exact efficacy of it, not always guaranteed. I can't go there in person to guarantee that it's actually the right thing and not like a weird nonsense magic thing or something that just happens to be columnar and shaped, whatever. But yeah, so this is Ark Survival Evolved. It's specifically a screenshot from the Steam page of their first expansion. Never played it. Played Ark for one day with some friends. I don't understand how to have fun with that game. I can't figure out how to enjoy that game. I have no idea. But this is one of the featured screenshots for their expansion, which apparently has dragons or something, but also lots of columns. Hello. This is a game called Bombshell. I don't even know what kind of game this is, but man, look at all those. Now, these might be slightly off. They look like there might be even crystal or something, but the pattern arises again. Here we got Conarium, the Lovecraftian horror game I played, and oh, there's the columns all around in this weird dreamscape sequence, which is a reoccurring theme you'll see with when this formation shows up in games. Is it's often used to represent magic or non-reality, which is interesting because it's a real thing that happens for real. As far as my theory as to why this shows up constantly in video games, it's easy to render. It's a hexagonal column for each one, which once upon a time was kind of hard for 3D engines, I suppose, but nowadays it's a relatively simple thing to render compared to the more complicated things that are often on the screen with it. So it's a relatively easy thing to just throw in there. You don't have to be that creative because it's a real thing, so you don't have to make up this idea. You can just rip it from existing world and have this like nice, performance-friendly, magic-looking, like supernatural-looking rock formation that is something that you can view in real life. You can visit locations in real life that have these. Here's Divinity Original Sin 2. Man, does this happen a lot. Their entire, once again, we have their spirit world and their non-real life area is all covered in this stuff, all the way down to even having the climax of the game occur amid these rocks. And this was on Doctor Who recently. Slightly iffy, that stuff above her looks like crystal, which would be different technically, but really just all the stuff around on the walls looks like it's definitely just actual rock. This is when they're on Mars in some kind of cave this last season, actually. And I don't know why that's, I guess it's a low-res picture is why it's in the middle of the frame like that. Columnar jointing in Dragon Age Inquisition. This is the first place I noticed it. It's been everywhere all the time, I'm sure. But I had finished my geology major, and I actually did a presentation on columnar jointing, because I just kind of picked it at random, I guess. And then I noticed it in Inquisition during my playthrough on this channel, and I was like, oh, that's neat, it's that thing I know about. And it looks neat, too, and Inquisition's one of the best uses of it, actually, because it's based on an actual location, and if I remember correctly, it's like the Irish coast or something like that. It's a real place. That looks, and the one in Inquisition is just a more fantastically proportioned version of the real location that is in Europe in real life. It's very explicitly a one-to-one reference, but with dragons and fire. Elex, even Elex had it, just for a bit. It's also in lava pools, which is, this is part of what I want to talk about, like, when I do a little research about this, I'm like, I'm curious a little bit. I'm like, is that reasonable? That might be reasonable. Because, like, you get columnar jointing from having a pool of lava that slowly cools down and then cracks and everything. It's a very similar process to how mud cracks are created in, like, pond mud, basically. Like when you have a slow-moving river or like a pond and it dries out and then the mud cracks in these hexagonal patterns, it's because of surface tension, essentially. The liquid version and the solid version of the object has different sizes. In both of these cases, we're talking about the stuff contracting. And so like that contraction leads to surface tension, which leads to these nice geometric patterns of breaking. That's true for both the mud and the magma. In the mud's case, it's because water is leaving the mud, and then that makes the mud smaller, and so it cracks as it shrinks. And then in this case, as you were talking about, like usually basalt is cooling down. But it's definitely the bonus points for being, I think, the only time, or at least an unusual case of it being alongside an actual lava pool, acknowledging its origins a bit. Although what definitely does not make sense, or at least, yeah, no, it doesn't really make sense. You can see lava is flowing through the columns up there at the top of the screen, and I'm like, how is it not destroying the columns? Or like, how did it even take that path? Or why are the columns there in the first place? And then on the left side, those columns are way up in the air. But like, they would only be that high in the first place because that was the surface level of the magma pool in the first place. And then the way you get these side exposures of the columns is that they erode downward over time. So like if you have the top of the columns, like up there is where the original surface was, and then it eroded downward because erosion's a constant factor for old geology, really. So like I'm just questioning the order of operations here, if there's somehow columns sticking way out of the magma, because it almost feels like they're trying to suggest that it's somehow growing out like crystals, but crystals grow. Other geologic formations usually don't. And I'm realizing now I'm kind of accidentally just making the real video about this subject, basically. Oh well. This is How to Train Your Dragon. It's the Netflix show, or this might have been an episode before it became a Netflix show. It's a DreamWorks television show that's based on the movies. I think it's follow-up or something. I've never watched the show. I just encountered this screenshot. I think I encountered it because I think I saw the Netflix show on... I think I saw it on Netflix, but it started off on not Netflix, then got canceled or picked up or something, and ended up on Netflix eventually, and now they make it or something. But there it is, and it's continuing our trend of association with dragons, which is another interesting thing. It's always we have dragons, and we have hallucinations and spirit worlds being our explanation for its use in video games. It's close enough, you know. Mario Rabbids. This was very. I guess this is comparable to the Elex situation. It's also very simple and stylized because they're cubes instead of hexagons, but it's clear where this came from, definitely. Moana! The island that Moana starts out on, actually, is just covered in this stuff. It's hard to even pick a scene to use, and then it shows up throughout the movie just constantly. They just were a big fan of that visual, apparently. See, Disney and DreamWorks both used it. Monster Hunter World just got this screenshot sent to me today. Apparently, it's there too. Hello. Look, more dragons. More dragons and Columnar. Why is that the specific? Okay. Myst 3. An entire age was dedicated to columnar jointing, basically. Yep, an entire island made of the stuff. And just in case you thought we were done, fucking Myst 4. Yeah, they did it again. Presto and Ubisoft both went with that. Okay. Why not? 9 parchments. It's very pretty. From the developers of Trine, so all their games are very pretty, and this continue to be very pretty. But look at them columns over there, and hey, it's along the coastline, it looks like, so it's comparable to the same source point that that Dragon Age is pulling its roots from. Overgrowth? I'm pretty sure this counts, but I'm a little iffy. It's weird. I might be wrong. It might be more comparable to like stibnite crystals or something like that, but there's like some weird stuff going on here where there's clearly columns coming out of walls everywhere, but they're not uniform and coming from the same direction. So they could be crystal growths, but they could also be maybe basalt columns that have like been destroyed in some way, and they're kind of scattered everywhere, and kind of wherever they landed is where they are, essentially. Secret of Mana. I think this is a PC like HD remake thing. I haven't played it. I haven't played this either, actually. Oh no, I played Overgrowth a little bit. I never encountered this, though. This is a screenshot I just encountered outside of playing it. This is interesting because this is a community mod case of using it. This is it's called the Elder Scrolls Renewal. It's some kind of mod / remake fan thing for Morrowind. I haven't looked into it too much, but I don't remember encountering this rock formation in Morrowind, but I have apparently encountered it in this screenshot of the remake or something that someone's working on. Don't know much about that process. This is Titanfall 2, another game I haven't played, but I encountered the screenshot. There's just a whole level full of this stuff. And Wolfenstein: The New Order. I don't know even know where this is in the game because I haven't played this one either. There's a lot of games I haven't played, and I play games non-stop, so that's... How are there so many games? Those are the main ones. I got two things I have in a folder that I call almost, because I don't... They're close. They aren't the same... They're not functionally the same rock or the same formation, but I think they're implemented for similar reasons, and they express a similar idea of why someone would do this. This is the movie called Cube 2 Hypercube. And there's like a really strong example of that, and it speaks to my idea of like how I think it's used, not only because it's a fantastical looking thing and it's eye-catching and memorable and interesting, but also because it's very easy to render with low resolution, or it's easy to render in old video games where you can't get a lot out of the graphics, and it's easy to run in new video games where you're just trying to do a thing that won't massively impact the performance, for example. Because this is Cube 2, and at that time, CG was garbage, basically. So everyone's CG was like, that person's made of metal, or look, that Terminator 2, he's all shiny, so he's just a mirror monster, and like all these things that like try to deflect how bad the CG would look if you tried to put like freaking PS1 Lara Croft in a video game or something like that. I mean, in a movie, like, as the video game character, like, so, but these kind of abstract things were more easy to render, and I think it speaks towards why it shows up so much in other stuff. Then we got this one, which is the, I don't know what to call this. This is Dark Souls 2, The Doors of Pharos. It's a really cool location. It actually speaks towards one of the things I like about Dark Souls 2 a little bit, is just that its geometry makes no sense. This is heavily criticized by some people, because they like how Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 have these physical locations that fold back on themselves, but Dark Souls 2 makes no sense. It's a place where you get in a windmill and take a elevator up to end up in a lava castle, and then other places you take an elevator up to get to some kind of impossible dragon hellscape, and like you seem to always be able to take an elevator up that somehow teleports you to a completely nonsensical location. And I feel like what speaks to that weird element of that game is the Doors of Pharos, this place where it's a place that physically makes no sense. Look at these. This is like the dimensions are broken and everything's insane. These buildings are all inside of each other and at impossible angles, and nothing makes sense about them, and it's sort of retroactively, I feel like they retroactively at the end of Dark Souls 3 in a DLC tried to explain like the world folding in on itself and not making sense. And I think some people thought that was like them trying to retcon it or explain away parts of Dark Souls 2 that were criticized for not making sense. But when you look at Doors of Pharos, I think it kind of points at the idea that maybe Dark Souls 2 was never supposed to make sense. Because look at this location. Like, this isn't like a weird transition between locations. It's the location itself is impossible. I think it was intentional the whole time. This is reinforced a little bit also by the Sunken King DLC for Dark Souls 2, which was like, the entrance to it is bizarre, and the geometry is just confusing, and I think that was all on purpose, actually. But anyway, besides, you have the buildings, and then you have the geology that mimics the buildings, and they both have this bizarre thing. It's almost columnar jointing. The problem is that you can't have columnar joints where, like, the basalt columns can't be like growing out of the ends of each other like that. Like, that's not how it works. They would be splitting uniformly and stuff like that. You don't just glom them onto each other or clipping through each other. But you can almost argue that maybe this was like a Mario and Rabbids Kingdom battle style simple version of columnar jointing that then fell victim to the bizarreness that is Doors of Pharos, and maybe whatever the Dark Souls has been up to was making it this absurd and bizarre. I'm not super sure, but it's food for thought. That's my collection so far. So here we had the location I was trying to remember the name of. This is the Giant's Causeway. So I want to show you the real life version of what this actually looks like, and you can tell it's not that different, honestly. Like, it's pretty close. You can see the erosion everywhere though, like especially near the bottom of the screen where the waves will be reaching it more frequently. You can see all the edges are all rounded off, and a lot of them are sloping and have completely lost their original shape, and the only sign that you can tell what they're supposed to be is basically the context clues of the surrounding rocks and then the crack patterns themselves. But up there at the top, where the waves don't reach it as much. It looks a lot like the video game stuff. It's just more down to the fact that once it's real life, there's just so much additional texture that usually isn't in video games. Just 5,000 tiny little details about little nicks in the corner and little asymmetries and sloppy, like, sloped tops and erosion points and weird textures caused by the water or bird shit or 500 other things, basically. And it's a fantastic... I want to see this place sometime. I haven't even been to Europe, though, so who knows? But yeah, it's, you can see where this all comes from. And look at that. Like, that looks a lot like, in particular, on top of the Dragon Age stuff, it looks a lot like the location in Myst, even. But this is where it all comes from, is this kind of location. And it happens for real. I think there also might be more in Yosemite or something like that. I'll have to take a look. I'm actually going to Yosemite tomorrow for the first time, so I'll take a picture if I see it, I guess. I think there might be some basalt columns around there. But anyway, this has been a long time coming, I guess, because I did the Dragon Age video in, like, what, 2014? And then I just keep pointing out columnar jointing every time I show it up. For me, I think of it as like the Wilhelm scream of level design, essentially, even if it doesn't feel quite the exact same role, but it's just a weird thing that keeps occurring constantly that you can, like, once you're in the know, you can keep pointing it out all the time. Like, oh, there's the Wilhelm scream. Look, Assassin's Creed did the Wilhelm scream 3 times and stuff like that. And that whole thing, it can either be like, yay, fun Easter egg, or oh, that completely takes me out of the moment because I'm too focused on this extraneous element. But I like looking at this stuff, and I'm noticing the weird trend of it being associated with either dragons or supernatural stuff. But no, it's real, and it's normal. There might be some in your country. Go find out. I don't know. I can't point you at a directory. I don't think there is one. But yeah. This has been my weird, pointless video. See you guys next time. Hopefully you have some idea now of why I keep pointing this shit out. Because there's been a trend.